Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin' Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. This is Marisa and I'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. It's approximately 4:01. Now, first up on the show, we're going to be speaking with Ken Canning, who is from ISJA in Sydney, and we're going to be speaking to him about a number of topics, one of them being the damning report that recently came out in regards to closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, and having a look at that and having a look at has the gap actually been closed. And we all know what's been happening over many years. Deaths in custody, genocide. But we'll continue that discussion later. And then later after that, we'll be speaking with Brett Collins from Justice Action. And Brett has been on this show, like Ken, over many shows. We've done extensive coverage about Justice Action. And we're going to be having Brett on just to do an update. He does a lot of work in relation to improving mental health facilities and other issues. But before we actually get into that, into those interviews, just wanted to let listeners know that it is a very special time of year. It is Subscriber Drive, and Subscriber Drive is very important to the station. Why become a member of 3CR? And I just want to talk a little bit about the subscription. It buys a piece of independent media, shows your support for your favourite show, gives you the right to be involved in the democratic processes at the 3CR, including how the station is run each year by voting at the AGM, how to pay. The price is $35 for unwaged, $75 fully waged and $150 solidarity. And you can go online, go to www.3cr.org.au and pay with credit card. Direct deposit, you can always ring 3CR and get your the bank details for that. Or you can call 3CR on 9419 8377. It'll be great if you could call and subscribe today. If you find our show interesting and you want to actually subscribe during our show today, or indeed any other day during this week. So, or you can post a cheque money order made out to 3CR, PO Box 1277, Collingwood 3076. Or you can just drop in and pay it. And there's so many benefits to subscribing. So pretty soon we're going to be speaking with Ken Canning from ISJA in regards to a variety of issues, in regards to, in particular, an Aboriginal man who died at Waterloo whilst being arrested by police. But we'll have a look at that in a sec. In the meantime, I'm just going to go into an announcement while we wait for Ken.
Estás sintonizando 3CR 855 de tu dial AM.
صدای ما را از رادیو 3CR 855 AM میشنوید.
Kính thưa quý vị, đây là đài phát thanh 3CR trên làn sóng AM 855. Kính mời quý vị đón nghe.
waa tahay waxaad naga dhegaysanaysaan waa raadiyaha jaaliyadaha ee 3CR mowjadiisa 855 AM.
Each week, 3CR broadcasts over 130 programs in 25 languages, supporting communities and viewpoints that you just don't hear about anywhere else. Subscribe to your award-winning multilingual community radio station, 3CR, and help keep these voices on the airwaves. Call the station on 94198377. The number is again 94198377.
And you're back with 3CR, the Doing Time Show. And we've got Ken on the line. Hello, Ken. Welcome to the program.
Hello, how are you? Good?
Good. Lovely to have you. Now,
Thank you.
You may or may not have heard the introduction.
No, I probably didn't.
That's okay.
I had phone troubles. I was about to run up around the corner to take the call.
Yeah, that's what happened last time. Ken, it's really lovely to have you. I always enjoy your company because we talk about so many things. And I spoke on air today and I just explained that we were going to be talking about closing the gap, the damning report that recently came out about so-called closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And also perhaps maybe talking about what happened at Waterloo as well.
Well, at Waterloo, I mean, that was, I think, when was that? That was last Wednesday.
Last week.
Yeah. And, there's a young man who's 13 stories up. Police kick the door down, rush in. He tries to go from one balcony to another and falls. That's how I see it, how I heard it. And but there's some alarming things here. Is they knew where he was when police kicked the doors in like that. Particularly the history of this young man who had some terrible hidings at the hands of the New South Wales Police or the Redfern Police. It creates fear. It creates panic. Now the general thing for anybody is to get away from the police. They know that. The whole world knows that. So for him to try and go from one balcony to another is not abnormal. But given that he was that far up, it would have been a lot wiser for them to put somebody out the front. He's got to come out to go to the shop sometime.
Yeah.
And there was an easy arrest in it. And the warrants they had out for him weren't for the serious end of the scale. It wasn't like he was, Australia's most wanted criminal. They were at the minor end of the scale, so it could have been done in a much more sensible way. But then again, we're dealing with police and Aboriginal people here, and they never use common sense. They use rough-hand tactics every time, and they care little about the outcome. And all I can see now is a complete cover-up, a scramble to cover up. Well, you've got the next door command, the Botany command, now investigating the Redfern command, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Look, it really is. And in fact, police have launched the critical incident investigation, which will be a joke. And this Indigenous man fell from a 13th floor balcony, didn't he?
Yeah.
And died while they were attempting to take him into custody in Sydney's inner south at the housing block.
The common sense thing would have been that they knew where he was. But somebody park a car out the front and when he walks out, get on the radio. Bang. That's a common sense way to do things. When you start kicking people's doors in, bear in mind this man had been the victim of violence from the Redfern Police prior to this event. So his reaction is to get away from them. That's his reaction. And that is a normal reaction in these circumstances. They could have waited at the ground floor. He wasn't a bird. He wasn't going to fly away.
No.
So they could have waited till he came out and done it more peacefully. No, it's again, the police they made a choice. They made the choice of the most violent way with which to apprehend somebody. That choice ended up in a death. Now, whichever way they want to look at it, they can try and justify it whichever means. There's another aspect to this. I've really got to take a pot shot on the online reporting of abc.com.au. They did the write-up of the story. They went by the facts, but in big letters, right in the middle of the story, very big letters, is family states man was on drugs.
Oh,
that had to be in big letters. Now, if you go into abc.com.au and see the story of it, you'll see what I mean. It's disgusting reporting.
That's
it's absolutely
terrible.
Disgusting because that is the feature of the article. The feature of the article is not about how the police caved the door in. The feature of the article is this one statement that is meant to demonise this person, to justify why he was killed. Now, the ABC, They've got a lot to answer for, in the sense that their reporting of late has just been as bad as Sydney's Daily Telegraph, as right-wing and as reactionary as the Daily Telegraph or 2GB here in Sydney, who do some pretty horrible stuff on Aboriginal affairs.
Well, they need to actually speak more about. I mean, they did mention that the family was requesting an independent review, but they do need to mention more about police investigating police. Don't criminalise him. Yes, he did have charges, I believe. Let's be fair here.
Yep.
You know, he did have charges. I think. Yep. Well, but they were going on members of the public. What they were saying, you know, stealing and assault or whatever.
Well, underneath that banner, the big writing of the family says he's on drugs. They've got the little back to normal font now. Family and neighbours stated the man was on ice. Well, how would the neighbours know?
Absolutely.
So they brought themselves undone. Have they got microscopic vision? Are they Superman? You know, X-ray vision where they can look through the walls. How on earth did the neighbours know? So they're quoting a totally unreliable source there.
Perhaps if he was white, I have to throw this question out to listeners. If he was white, would there have been a difference?
Oh, a huge difference, a huge difference. They would have been so critical of the police. They would have been hounding the police and saying, what are the police doing rushing a door in the first place? Didn't they realise that young people try and escape and try and get away, that some people had that fight or flight thing? They would have went right on. There would have been no mention of drugs. There would have been no mention of alleged neighbours stating this, that or the other. I can't see how they got that statement out of neighbours.
Oh, here it is. Yeah. I've just seen it in the article here.
The question has to be asked when they've made a statement like.
Yeah, relatives say man was high on ice. Neighbours and relatives have told the ABC.
See what the man was up. So why did they bother even putting that in?
Look, a crystal meth. What's that got to do with him falling from a building?
Well, they put it in obviously to demonise the young man that has lost his life and to demonise him at a time of tragedy. And to again, it's an example of reporting to justify over-policing and violent type police action.
Absolutely.
And that's the disgusting thing. This could have been resolved in a peaceful, non-confrontational manner.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the ABC didn't have to put any of that stuff in, you know. So I mean, ever since the intervention, and they allowed that they had that investigation into Tony Jones's role in the intervention. They've gone downhill and downhill very fast.
It really does whitewash the issue around the fact that police not only need more training, but they need ongoing cultural training so that racial profiling doesn't occur.
Well, it's not I've got another thing to add. I actually believe police should, and I think there should be random drug testing. I'm sure some of them are on something. When their eyes are rolling around their head, the riot squad, when you're in a march and you come face to face with them, bit of a scary look. I would say, you know, to be in the police in a modern day police force, I think you've got to go through more heavily before you enter a more rigid psychological test.
That's right.
I would argue that TOS, yes, they need more intensive training, they need more cultural training, but they need some common sense training. For goodness sakes, the man is on the 13th floor. He's not going anywhere.
That's exactly right.
He's not got a magic carpet that he can fly away on.
Exactly.
Wait down on the ground for him to go up and get a packet of biscuits or a soft drink or a snack to eat, and you've got him. It's as simple as that. And, you know, I've never done any police force training, but if I could work that out, I'm sure they have thought of those strategies. I'll tell you what, if that was a white kid, that's what they would have done. They would have said, he's in the area, keep an eye for him, we'll get him when he comes down.
And, you know, it's really interesting, Ken, whose anniversary is coming up soon, the death of TJ Hickey.
Yes.
And that's a similar incident.
Yeah, they're getting, you know, and they're still in denial over that. Still in denial that, you know, their police chase caused his death. Of course their police chase caused his death. I mean, you look at Constable Hollingsworth at the time. I don't know how he got away with this, but he stated the coronial inquiry at the time. I refuse to give evidence on the grounds it may incriminate me.
Yes.
On the grounds it may incriminate me. They're the words that came out of his mouth. So therefore, whatever evidence he had to say would have seen him possibly be shown in a criminal manner, acted in a criminal manner, acting
Exactly.
Illegally. So he said those words himself, and how on earth the coroner allowed him to get away with it, didn't say, look, until you take the stand, I'm going to put you in jail, until you tell the truth on the stand. He just let him get away with it. That bloke has skated thin. Under his own admission, my evidence may incriminate me.
Now, this is in regards to the young 17-year-old Aboriginal young man, TJ Hickey,
yes,
who died in, I believe,
14 years ago.
14 years ago
Yes.
now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
he was
14 years ago this Wednesday. Yeah.
And he was impaled on a fence when the police chased him through Redfern for something trivial.
Well, they're trying. Well, yeah, they're trying to say he hit the gutter, he hit this, you know.
Yeah.
But they kept the bike for that long.
Of course they did. It wasn't an accident.
No, but they hit that bike.
Of course they did.
Where they said he was impaled on the fence and where he was actually impaled on the fence, there's a long distance between the two. So he was, you know, it was quite obvious he was catapulted with some force. That force came from a police car hitting him.
Absolutely.
And they have told lie after lie after lie. It doesn't need a fresh coronial inquiry, this one. It needs a parliamentary inquiry, and it needs independent people to have a part of that, independent lawyers to have a part of that inquiry. That's what needs to happen, so they can have a look at the evidence, not through Coroner Abernathy's eyes, who allowed a man to skate off because he was going to incriminate himself, through have independent lawyers that have some working knowledge of this case on the parliamentary inquiry. It has to happen. You can't even trust the politicians to investigate it. You know, Liberal and Labor Party are about as useful to us as a 10-year jail sentence.
So what happened on the weekend? Did you see the report that came out about closing the gap?
Oh, look, I had a look at the stuff again that was reported, and yeah, it's Turnbull waffling on again, as Turnbull does. I've often said, you know, this guy, and it probably gets edited out every time I say it, but I swear he's on drugs. He's got this mad grin on his face as if I don't know where I am. They're demonising our people about being on drugs. Well, I swear we've got a Prime Minister who's a stoner. He's walking around with that silly, idiotic grin on his face, and he doesn't know what he's saying. He does not know what he's saying. Yeah. Now, if you listen to medical experts, they're talking about closing the gap. A few areas, he says, are sort of working. That's two of them are the attendance at school and more people going through their HSC, but he doesn't talk anything about incarceration rates, deaths in custody rates, stealing of children, Northern Territory intervention. He doesn't talk about the life expectancy of Aboriginal people. Now, if we were going at this rate, doctors will tell you if they keep going at this rate, to get the life expectancy up to that of non-Aboriginal people would take 490 years. That's a medical opinion shared by a lot of doctors, and that is something that fool Turnbull will not. He wouldn't even know. He wouldn't even know because he's seeking advice of a bunch of bureaucrats who do not know what they're doing. Closing the gap will not work because it's run by non-Aboriginal bureaucrats who are only in there earning a good quid. All the money's going to their wages, earning a good quid, and they haven't got a clue what they're doing.
And, you know, the fact is that we live in a colonised land. We're living on stolen land. And, you know, there's not only is there no treaty, but you've got the over-representation, haven't we, of Indigenous people in prisons?
It's in the 30% somewhere.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the outcome of the intervention alone, as we speak, the adult rate, the adult percentages of incarceration in the Northern Territory is around 84%. The juvenile rate is a massive 96%.
It's very, it's
that's
crazy.
That's got to shock the whole world. But we've got a government who stands around and he skirts around. Oh, there's more kids going to school now. Well, there's more kids in in New South Wales alone. Since June 2017, there's been an increase of 25% of Aboriginal people locked up.
Yeah.
There have been more suspicious deaths in the last 6 months than there has been in years. I mean, very highly suspicious deaths. They're
Too
not
much.
deaths, they're killings. And we've got a fool who will sit there and talk about attendance rate at schools looking better. Well, it's no good if you're going to go through school and at the end of the day you're going to find yourself incarcerated.
Correct.
The fact remains we have more chance of ending up in prison than we do universities. That's a
right.
fact. Now, the government's got to get their head around that. If education is so important, don't lock us up after the process, and then don't kill us while we're being locked up. Surely that's not asking too much. I've got a hashtag I use, the right to live. We are talking here about the basic rights to live, and we are not being given that. And we have these fools walking around in a little pipe dream, and I am sick to death of that idiotic grin he puts on his face every time he talks about Indigenous issues. I'm sick to death of it.
I know.
I think he should hand himself into rehab and be done with it.
Oh, goodness gracious.
At least it'll quash the rumours, because a lot of us think he's on something.
It's very difficult. Honestly, it's the politicians. I mean, what are they actually doing? What are they? What policies? What funding is
nothing,
available?
Nothing. Well, it's in the hands of
programs?
incompetence. You've got an incompetent leader dealing with it, but it's both sides. In Aboriginal affairs, it's both sides of the politics. It's ALP and Liberal Party, LNP. I'm tired of, there's some Aboriginal people around that are, I hear them saying, when ALP gets in, this will change. Well, excuse me, it was ALP extended the intervention by 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was Kevin Rudd who made the apology that extended it by 10 years and caused the massive stealing of children out of mothers' arms in the Northern Territory. So if everybody's waiting on a Hail Mary for the ALP, they'll be waiting for infinity. They're just as incapable of handling Aboriginal affairs. The only way to do it is to lead the way of self-governance, where we govern the situation. Now, we don't take government funding. We must have, and it's our right, it's our very right to have a percentage of tax of big business that comes out of this land, and from there we can form our own separate powers to govern Aboriginal affairs, and we know how to fix it. And you put it this way, you can't do any worse than these lot. These lots are absolutely hopeless. The only thing doing on both the Liberal Party and Labor Party is more people are dying. And more people are getting sick.
Certainly, there needs to be people working together in solidarity as well.
Well, there is. We're trying to. If you look at, I think Melbourne had 60,000 people on the street on Invasion Day.
Invasion Day, yep.
We had 20,000 plus. Some are saying up to 30,000. I don't know how many.
And that's really important, isn't it, Ken?
It is. Yeah, a lot of those are non-Aboriginal people. So. There is a change sort of happening within people. I've often said, people are starting to get smarter. There's an evolutionary process going on in Australia. The general public is starting to evolve into a smarter public generally, but the politicians are not evolving. The politicians have the same mentality of those leaders who got off alleged leaders who got off the boat in 1788. They just dress differently, but they've got the same mindset.
Exactly.
You can't tell me Malcolm Fraser thinks any different to Arthur Phillip. If he could get out there and send out punitive expedition, and not Malcolm Fraser, Malcolm Turnbull, if he could send out expeditions, he would. They are absolutely putrid in their ways of dealing with Aboriginal peoples. And
there's no consultation. There's no consultation.
Nothing. Oh, well, they will. They'll consult. They'll consult with somebody like Jacinta Price, who's just feminist,
But perhaps tokenism, perhaps.
Well, you'd rather consult with a brown snake. She spits out more venom than a brown snake, and they're pretty toxic.
We need to have a stronger emphasis on programs instead of building more prisons.
But those programs have to come. Those
Yes.
programs have to come from the grassroots voice, not
For sure.
the professional Aborigine voice, as I call
Yeah,
them. The 9 to 5 black fellas who get into these positions, the Warren Mundines, who, he's in the Turnbull camp,
goodness.
walks
Yeah,
around with an idiot's grin on his face. Maybe they've got the same dealer, I don't know. But they've both got the same idiot grin on their faces. There isn't a care in the world. Well, I've got to tell these fellas there is a lot of care in the world.
So really what we're doing is we're giving, I suppose, a critique on the way that people like Warren Mundine behaves. Right?
Oh,
we're not having a go at his character.
No, his character. I mean, he might be all right to sit down and have a cup of tea with it if he wasn't an elite spokesperson.
But you're worried about the actual implications of the way that he's not representing things properly.
Well, he certainly puts himself up as representative, and there's several of them around. And they're absolutely despicable people in that manner. In the manner that they're directing the narrative to Government Australia,
Absolutely.
and the narrative's completely different to what is happening on grassroots Australia. The very successful march we ran here in Sydney, why it was successful was the great majority of our speakers were grassroots people. When we got given time on the stage at Yarburn, there was an auntie and a mother of recent killings in custody who got the time. No big names. We didn't choose big speakers. We chose people who were affected by the murderous colonial regime.
I see what you mean. Yep.
So and then we had a fellow from Borroloola who's lived most of his life under the intervention. Nobody ever heard of these people's names, which is refreshing for a change because
Absolutely.
the audience actually hung off every word they had to say. Grandmothers Against Removal. Nobody knew these people's names, but they hung off every word. I think sometimes the general public who are on side with Aboriginal affairs are sick and listening to the lunatic brigade that are making a living out of Aboriginal affairs and stabbing their own people in the back. I think people are starting to wake up to all these professionals in the system because judging by the reaction grassroots people at the coal face of the battle got from our 20,000 plus audience on the 26th of January, I think people are looking for a grassroots voice and grassroots solutions.
Absolutely,
These people not only articulated their own struggle, but they also articulated some possible solutions.
And you're talking about the Invasion Day rally, aren't you?
Yeah, the Invasion Day rally. So we
Sydney.
had grassroots people giving the audience possible solutions that could be done and adhered to.
Absolutely.
So we're not short on talent. We're not short on talent.
No, absolutely. And Ken, you've been great. Look, as I said, I could talk to you all day. We do have another interview coming up, and we're going to be speaking with Brett Collins shortly, actually, from Justice.
Oh, say good day to Brett for me.
I will. I'll do that.
We met many years ago.
Lovely guy. He's done a lot of really great work. And because, in fact, this show is the New South Wales show today.
Yeah.
Because you're from Eastern Sydney, and now we're going to be talking to Brett soon. So
Brett and I were old mates from our old days in the prison system. So there
fantastic. Oh, good.
So there you go. Come on.
I'll say good day to him for you. Yeah.
He's a lovely fella.
He really is.
Yeah.
Well, keep in touch, Ken, and I'm sure we'll be back to for future updates very soon.
Thank you very much.
Keep
Thanks
up the good work.
Have a good day. Thanks.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Ken Canning speaking about closing the gap, the report that came out about closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And we also looked at police custody and what happens to Aboriginal people. We're going to be speaking with Brett shortly, but in the meantime, I'll leave you with a subscriber announcement, and do think about subscribing.
Arms around you.
And you're back with the Doing Time show, and we're going to be speaking with Brett Collins. pretty soon with Justice Action. But first of all, just wanted to make an announcement that was a song about Elijah, who is an Aboriginal young man who died at the hands of a very, very unfair, tragic death. And the person, I don't think even had any jail time, or may have, and not enough. But I'll talk about that some other time, because we do need to do more coverage about that. It's a number of Aboriginal musicians did that made that song, and it's quite amazing. It's approximately 4:34, and this is Marisa, solo in the studio. Hello, Brett. Welcome to the program.
Hello, Marisa.
It's lovely to have you, Brett.
Yeah, it's lovely to be there. It's great. First time of the year.
It is, and
Excellent.
Absolutely. Summer programming's over, and this is actually our subscriber drive. We're actually trying to have people in Victoria subscribe to 3CR.
Okay, look, it makes so much sense. I mean, you obviously are doing things that otherwise wouldn't happen, so it's so important to have people putting their hands up and saying we want to support it, and
Absolutely.
that's a good thing for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Brett, I'm wondering what's happening with Justice Action. What are some of the things that you're doing? I wanted to invite you back just to do a bit of an update.
Okay, no, that's great. Okay, well, look, probably the most important thing we're doing is the rolling out of the success we had getting computers into cells, because that really is a game changer through the whole system, not just New South Wales, for Victoria as well, but all for all people, wherever they are in a prison cell or in a locked psychiatric unit, wherever they are, to have access to communication, access to be able to email people is basic, and that victory won here in New South Wales is one that is one on the basis of the entitlements of people to learn skills and most importantly not cause more damage when they go back to jail. Now, what we were able to do was to highlight that it was actually not it wasn't being generous to the person in jail to give them a computer. It was an essential, rational response to getting people who have offended in jail or who are isolated in jail to maintain their links to the community, so that when they are released, they are less likely to reoffend, and most importantly, focused at the issue of domestic violence, that they have learnt skills that allow them to deal with their families when they're released. So we actually did a very careful analysis on what the impact would be in New South Wales if they had access to a computer in their cell, and what would be the reduction in damage done in having a computer. And it meant that we were able to work through the mathematics of the benefits of the systems that would become available, and we're able to prove that over 500 women and children would not be traumatised, and $110 million would be saved if people had computers in their cells. We made the argument absolutely watertight, did a very careful analysis about a 32-page document which looked at all the figures on what domestic violence programs were available and what impact they have on people, and we're able to prove the argument. And at the end of it, New South Wales government said, "We'll do it. We'll do it." And we didn't send it to the government. We sent it to every member of Parliament, upper and lower house, every judge, from justice, from magistrates right up to the High Court of Australia. To each person separately addressed a letter, but not from us, from a letter from the former Attorney General John Dowd here in New South Wales, and supported by Elizabeth Evatt, who was formerly the Chief Justice of the Family Court. So very significant people who supported the argument, and we were then able to say, if you don't supply computers and cells, the cost will be much greater to the community, and it's not a question of just being mamby-pamby to prisoners. It's just making sure that that the services are available, prevent them from reoffending, and we won it. Yeah, so we've spent the last probably 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, telling everyone, going to every state and territory. So in Victoria, for example, we've made a contact with the Minister for Corrections, the Premier as well, opposite spokesperson Greens, and the Commissioner in every state and territory in Australia, and run that argument out. So and then we'll follow up with some sort of feedback from each of the jurisdictions. But it's being taken very seriously, and New South Wales has now nailed its flag to the mast, and will bring in computers themselves. And we know it's being phased in step by step in different areas. So that's our major campaign, and we're really, really proud of that success.
That's fantastic, and I know. Look, it's good that we do have to plug this issue over and over again on this show, Brett, because it's not actually stated on television. It's not in any of the media outlets.
Well, look, the nice thing about this is that when people inside prison understand that there's an argument to say that it's much better for them to have it, not just for their good, but for the good of everyone, then they all start feeling ready to receive their computer. So not only do you get a computer, you get access to education services. You can do courses inside your cell.
And counselling.
Instead of waiting for an education teacher that doesn't turn up, then you have a chance to do that. You also have a chance not only to learn new skills when it comes to knowing yourself better, but you can deal with things like if you've got drug and alcohol problems and things like that. You can have an outside service provider who you trust, and who will be there for you when you get out as well, and link up to you. You can have emails like in the ACT. Every week, 22,000 emails go in and out of that small jail. 440 prisoners in the ACT prison, and every week 22,000 go in and out. So that's something that doesn't happen anywhere else in Australia, and we think actually nowhere else in the world. All right, so we're right on the edge of change, and we're just making sure we push it really hard. But that's one of the things we're doing. But then there's all the other stuff. There's been an effort here in New South Wales to build dormitory prisons. Dormitory prisons, where you've got 25 maximum security prisons sitting together, with only a metre and a half barrier between, metre and a half high barrier between yourself and the person next door to you, who you don't know. And then you've got and 2 meters wide, 3 meters long is the size of the cubicles. Excuse me, 25 people together that's appalling. And to do it without any sort of discussion with anyone. The architects presumably had a brief which no one's seen yet, and they just created this monstrosity. But the monstrosity is one that cost them over $500,000 for each person. So it's the same cost as if they had single cells, but they were in such a hurry to do it because they hadn't managed it properly. They decided that they'd actually build these dormitory, they called it rapid build prisons, costing an enormous amount of money, $188 million for a 400 prisoner set of dormitories, 25 people to a dormitory. It's appalling. But we managed to we've got an inquiry that's gone before the upper house in New South Wales, and that's something where we definitely intend to hold the line. So it's a really important issue. And then it goes on. We've got, of course, there's the follow-through with the Royal Commission up in the Northern Territory. There are a whole lot of things that come out of that, and most importantly, that the kids, young kids after 18 years old, they should have access once again to communication, access to complain. So if you're in Dondale, you should at least be able to say, "Hey, Mum, I'm sitting in this black cell by myself, and I can't get access to education. I can't get access to health services. I can't, and you can complain." And you can
hey, Mum, they're going to put a spit hood on me.
Aha. Well, you see, all these things will be possible. Okay, and so we're driving it as hard as we can. So we're now pushing hard into the Northern Territory, and also federal government has an obligation there to follow up the Royal Commission as well. So it's really important to get right in behind those things. Yeah,
it is. It's terribly important, and just to take up the issue you were talking about before about the dormitory style prisons. I mean, that's severe overcrowding, isn't it?
Well, I guess when you look at it, if you stand back carefully, you've got to say that's when you consider it's actually an open paddock where they build these things. To actually be mean with the space and to lock people into a dormitory, we got 25 people who don't know each other, right? Who probably have arguments, who are all under tension, who have drug issues, and you then throw them all into a box together, and you expect them to get along. Now, come on. There's all sorts of things have happened overseas in that situation. There's all sort of gang breakups and bullyings, and the tension is there all the time. So now, even the idea of a prison officer walking into a dormitory to try to prevent something from happening, yeah, right. No, it means people's lives are at risk at every stage, and it means people can't go to sleep except for feeling fearful and having to have a friend beside them. Just the whole idea is appalling. Could only have been created by people who've never been in a cell and who know nothing about imprisonment.
Absolutely. It's approximately 4:44 and you're listening to an interview with Brett Collins, Coordinator of Justice Action. And Brett, just one last thing. I know you've been representing Australian inmates and involuntary mental health patients at local OPCAT conferences.
That's right.
Are you still doing that?
Yes, absolutely. No,
Can you describe that?
Well, that's right. Look, only just towards the end of last year, there was a round table and also a seminar looking at what are the obligations of Australia to ensure that people who are isolated, whether it's whatever sort of institution that is, whether it's a prison or a mental hospital or a juvenile justice institution, that those people have their human rights, inverted commas, whatever they are, right, properly defended. So OPCAT is the international instrument, right? So under the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, there are quite a few human rights that accrue, and then in details they go down to what are the entitlements of people to not be tortured. So OPCAT is the optional protocol against the Convention Against Torture. So, and torture is many things. Torture doesn't have to be taking out your fingernails or poking out your eyes. Torture can be removing your dignity and humanity. Right, so, and that means a lot of stuff. And obviously, the situation up in Dondale with the young kid who was sitting in a chair strapped down with a hood over his face, that was definitely torture, according to the Act. And so what OPCAT does, OPCAT forces each of the states and territories to ensure that there's a mechanism of some sort to inspect prisons and inspect places of detention, and to ensure that they abide by the treaty. So it's a whole range of stuff that follow from there, and we're watching really closely. Like we're when I say watching, we are engaged. We have to be engaged, and we are making sure that the rights of the person in prison is being fully defended, and we'll have full discussion about it all before any agreements are made. But now our most important things are that we should make sure that everyone has access to a computer in their cells so they can actually report about their abuses. They can report to the ombudsman. They can report to wherever it's got to be, to their lawyer, and make sure that their voice is heard. And also that other prisoners are able to become their ears as well, and their eyes and ears and their voices, and making sure that it isn't up to single individuals to defend themselves. Yeah?
Absolutely. And in fact, I liked the quote that you put into this particular, it looks like it's something online here, and you say it's embarrassing that Australia has lagged behind many other much smaller countries who accepted the responsibilities they had under the treaty.
Well, that's right. Look, Australia has been years behind accepting its obligations under OPCAT. And so the idea of what they call the National Preventative Mechanism is something that has been adopted by a whole range of other countries. Like New Zealand is way ahead of us.
Absolutely.
And the obligations are clear. They have to open up and to be examinable, and for people to put in complaints and have them listened to and respectfully, and the rights to appeal, and all those sort of things come out of it.
They don't do it. There's no treaty here.
No, that's right. Well, the Attorney General, George Brandis, was totally embarrassed about what had happened up in Dondale. And so the abuse of that young kid up in Dondale made them realise that they currently are allowing torture to occur, and against the most vulnerable. So that was the point at which the government said it could not avoid being a signatory and accepting the protocol of OPCAT. And so that was the turning point, and the Attorney General actually said that to a round table at which I attended.
Well, that's all the more reason, actually, for listeners to subscribe to 3CR, because of the fact that the Doing Time show actually reported on the mistreatment of youth detainees at Dondale at the end of 2014-2015, and those incidents at that facility didn't gain national attention until mid-2016.
Wow, doesn't that say everything?
What does that say, Brett?
Well, that says how important it is to have independent media outlets such as 3CR being able to report fearlessly and also drawing the information that other media outlets are not listening to. So I think very important function, and well done to 3CR, and I certainly commend you for it. We're very pleased to have your support in what you're doing.
We love to have you too on the show, Brett. And also Ken Canning from Easter Sydney sends his says good day, sends his regards.
Oh, that's marvellous.
We just had an interview with him previously looking at the appalling, the damning report that came out about closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people.
Ken's marvellous, a very good friend, and I'm pleased that he had a chance of expression.
Well, this is a New South Wales show today.
Oh no! Look, these issues are Australian issues. They really are.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. And so when it comes to Dondale, that's an Australian issue. It impacts on.
It's an Australian issue, indeed. It is. I was being a little bit lighthearted, but you're right, Brett. And look, this covers Victoria. It covers the whole of Australia. In fact, the whole of Australia is an intervention, and in many ways, it is 1788 all over again.
Absolutely. Well, that's right, and look, I don't doubt at all that also your program is also able to be able to access in different ways. I assume it can be accessed online and all those
Absolutely,
things.
Yep.
Well,
and we have a podcast as well.
Yes, not just national, international. So I think it's
Absolutely
really important. Yeah, people are lucky, absolutely lucky.
Thank you very much, Brett. Have a lovely week and keep up the good work.
Lovely. Okay, thanks, Marisa.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks to the team at 3CRT.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
And that was Brett Collins from Justice Action speaking about some programs that came out of Justice Action, giving an update on the wonderful work that they're doing. And we're just going to go into another subscriber announcement. And previously you heard a song about Elijah from WA, who was tragically killed. And there was a lot of unfair trials about that.
3CR, the perfect companion in your car on your road trip.
You can stream radio
Anywhere.
straight into your car.
Straight in.
Like 3CR gets streamed straight into your car, keeping you company. No matter where you're going or what you're doing, you'll have something interesting in your ear.
That's correct. And you can Bluetooth it and you can just stick it right into you. Is any kind of attachment you want.
To subscribe to 3CR, unwaged is $35.
Yes.
Waged?
75.
And solidarity?
$150.
$150. That's pretty reasonable to help keep 3CR on air. Call 3CR 9419 8377 and
subscribe.
Subscribe today.
Subscribe now. When I'm on a road trip, I want to take 3CR with me and listen to rock and roll. Ali MC and the Footscray Community Arts Centre present Rohingya, Refugee Crisis in Colour, an exhibition that delves deep into the heart of the ongoing Rohingya refugee crisis. Featuring photography from both Ali MC and Rohingya refugees, a short documentary and stunning aerial drone footage. Head down to the opening at Footscray Community Arts Centre, 6 p.m. on Thursday, February 8. The exhibition runs from February 9 until March 10. For more information, visit footscrayarts.com.
A 3CR supporter.
We will not negotiate with minor native title government or anyone on our culture, on our land. You know, if people say, oh, you're going to finish up with nothing, well then so be it. But at least our hearts will tell us that we did not sell out our country and our culture and heritage for a few scungy dollars.
Subscribe to 3CR so that your dollars support Indigenous voices and the struggle for land justice.
For Aboriginal people, the greatest grief of all is seeing the country destroyed. And somewhere along the line, we have to realise that we don't actually have the right to do that. That nothing we've ever done has given us the right to do that. Now, you know where I stand on this, because I'm so simple-minded. I think We've just got to admit that this is an Aboriginal country. Just do it.
And you're back with the Doing Time show, and it's approximately 4:54. And pretty soon we're going to be going out with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella from the Rumpy Band. Thank you to both of our guests. Thank you to Ken Canning from Easter Sydney for coming onto the show. And thank you also to Brett Collins from Justice Action. We've got Beyond Zero up next. And just wanted to also take this opportunity to really encourage listeners to subscribe to 3CR. This is Subscriber Drive. I believe it's going for, for about a week. And it is really important to subscribe. Buy an independent piece of media. And you might very well ask, why become a member of 3CR? Because it shows support for your favourite show. It gives you the right to be involved in the democratic processes at the 3CR, including how the station is run each year by voting at the AGM. And I'll just give you a little bit of a summary because we're running out of time about how to pay. First of all, I'll give you the prices. The price is $35 for unwaged, $75 fully waged, and $150 solidarity. And you can subscribe online, www.3cr.org.au/subscribe, and pay with your PayPal or credit card account, or direct deposit. And you can write your name in the reference field and give 3CR a call if you want to do a direct transfer. Or you can call now, 03 9419 8377 during business hours and do a credit card payment only. Or you can go down in person and visit the station at 21 Smith Street, Fitzroy, and pay by cash, credit or cheque. Or you can post a cheque or money order made out to 3CR to PO Box 1277 Collingwood 3066. And it's really important to for someone or just some people to subscribe to keep the station on air. And it doesn't have to be today. It can be over the next week. So, this is another show that's rocking to a close now. And the Doing Time show, tune in every Monday from 4 till 5 p.m. Or you can go to www.3cr.org.au and look at the podcast if you've missed most of it. Anyway, that's Beyond Zero up next, and we're going to be going out now with our theme song, as I said before, Black Fella, White Fella from the Warumpi Band. And what I want to say to people is stay strong and look after each other. And, bye.